And good evening. What are police in Idaho doing? Nearly 3 weeks after the horrific murder of 4 college students, there's still no suspect in custody, no police sketch, and no murder weapon found. And now, to make things even worse, contradictory statements from local authorities adding even more confusion to an already painful situation. These are the names and faces of the 4 lives cut tragically short on November 13th. Authorities once again saying they believe their killings were targeted, despite a local prosecutor saying otherwise. The community at the University of Idaho gathering for an emotional vigil late last night, thousands turning up to pay their respects. The grief unmistakable on the faces in the crowd. This tight-knit community left shaken before this tragedy struck. The city had not recorded, get this, a single murder since 2015. Steve Gonzalez speaking to that crowd, honoring his daughter Kaylee. Our team speaking to him moments ago. What he's now revealing about Kaylee's death and what he's calling on police to do tonight. NBC's Morgan Chesky leads us off with that interview and this story.
Tonight, new questions surrounding the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. Authorities saying they still believe the killings were targeted, pushing back on a claim made by a local prosecutor.
Is it fair to say you believe this was targeted, but you don't know if it was location or individual based?
Yeah, that's correct. At this point in the investigation, we have not really come to a conclusion whether it was the individuals involved or one individual, multiple individuals, or the location. We haven't made that determination yet.
But the families of the victims frustrated, with no suspects named and no murder weapon found. Steve Gonzalez's daughter Kaylee was killed alongside her best friend.
How does it feel 3 weeks in here and to know that whoever did this to your daughter is still out there?
It's ridiculous. It's angering, you know, this amount of time, and I can't even get them to say that this is a man. We can't have that kind of closure with that guy still on the streets.
How fearful are you of this case going cold?
Well, the town likes to bring up the fact that there's very low crime. So there's not a lot of working knowledge there. This is what we're dealt with. This is what we got. This is the circumstances that we found. Let's make the best of it and let's move on. But the lead investigator, he's a true stud. He really knows what he's doing. So I put my trust in him, but he can't make evidence if it's not there. So I am very concerned.
Police are now turning to the public to help fill in a detailed timeline. But the families of the victims want more to be done.
I don't know what you're getting paid for if you're not communicating anything. You got to figure out a way to build a case off of what you release and still protect close, detailed information that only the killer will know, but you have to help the community help you.
All right, Morgan Chesky joins us now from Moscow, Idaho. Morgan, as you've reported here on Top Story, the Gonzalez family chose not to hold a public funeral for their daughter. What did Steve tell you about that?
Yeah, Tom, I asked that very question. Heartbreaking response. He is so concerned that whoever did this may try to blend in with a crowd at a public funeral that the family has chose to hold off for right now. He says that that thought even entered his brain when he was speaking to the crowd at that vigil last night. Several thousand people in front of him. He says he was disgusted by the fact that this killer could be bold enough to try to take some sort of joy in this traumatic aftermath that took his daughter away.
And Morgan, on that theory, do they think the killer or killers, and I know you got to that in your story, are part of the university community, other students, or do they think possibly this person is from the town?
Yeah, Tom, I spoke to investigators right now. They're remaining incredibly tight-lipped. They have been able to rule out several individuals as potential suspects as this investigation has gone on. But when I asked the investigator point blank, he says, we do not have a suspect. We do not have a suspect description. We don't even have a person of interest at this point in time. And that's why he said it is so important for the public, if they have any sort of tip or potential evidence, to come to police as they build out that timeline to try to retrace the steps of each of these 4 young students to try to figure out where they were in those hours before they went to that house where they were later found dead.
Morgan, you were at the vigil. What are students like right now over there? What's their mindset? Are they living in terror?
they're certainly constantly aware of what has taken place here. Some are choosing to take the school up on its offer for remote learning for the rest of the semester. We heard from another father who said he didn't feel it was right to have his child, his daughter, go here, knowing that even though there was a potential of something that could go terribly wrong, there's law enforcement in almost every direction you look around the campus, and we're told that FBI has come here to assist with the investigation so the local Moscow Police Department can focus on patrolling this community. One example of just how aware this town is of what's taken place is that the number of calls for suspicious activities or disturbances has doubled in the last few weeks.
Yeah, that stands to reason. Okay. Morgan Chesky leading us off. Morgan, we thank you. For more on this ongoing investigation, I want to bring in former Boston Police Department Commissioner Ed Davis. Ed, it's been a day of confusing statements from the police department and a local prosecutor. And at issue, the thing that was confusing the public and the families is whether the victims here were targeted or whether the residence was targeted. And they basically had to go back to the police department and say, yes, they believe that this was a crime, some type of crime where there was a target in place. But it just seems so confusing.
It is confusing. Thank you, Tom. I've been looking at this since it happened, and it's unfortunate that there's a lack of coordination among the comments that are being made by the prosecutors and the police. Usually they're in lockstep with each other. But this may be due to the fact that they don't do a lot of homicide investigations in this community. This is an unusual occurrence for them, and they're pretty overwhelmed, I'm certain, because of the national attention that this case is garnering. So they've got to get their act together. They've got to sit down at a table and determine what the evidence is, and then make a determination on what they can share. And, the compelling comments by the victim's father are exactly on track. We investigate. I was personally involved in several hundred homicide investigations. We would give the victims' families more information than we would release to the press. It's just important that they understand that you're doing everything that you can do, and you really have to keep them on board.
And if I could stop you right there, one of the things that stood out to me during Morgan's interview with the father was that he said that the top investigator was, I think he used the word, he called him a stud, that he looked to be a serious investigator, but at the same time he said he couldn't invent evidence. And that to me sounded like something that maybe had been shared to them, that there was not a lot of evidence right now at the crime scene.
Right. And it's frustrating for a family to have to deal with the fact that there might not be an easy solution to a crime like this. These crimes sometimes take time. There's a lot of evidence that they can pursue. And it is not unusual for the main investigator to develop a very strong relationship with the family. But the family does have to be kept in the loop.
Do you think there's any chance police know who did this? Do you think they have any strong leads and they're just not letting the family or the public know?
It doesn't seem to be the case, but it's possible. Police departments in the past have been very tight with information. As time goes on, we've learned that getting the community engaged in the conversation, for instance, releasing video evidence that you have for help from the community is a very effective way of connecting people to the case and letting them know that you're on it. But departments that don't have a lot of experience will kind of tuck and cover, and that might be the case of what's happening here.
And Ed, just from what we know, what's been reported, what's been put out there by the police, no murder weapon has been found. It doesn't sound like there has been concrete evidence collected. The students that were on the second floor were killed. There were some students on the first floor that were not killed. This is not an area of high crime, and yet they have no idea who did this. Does any of that put together any type of profile for you?
Well, what it tells me is it's been reported that there are hundreds of pieces of physical evidence. In a violent crime like this, there is commonly transfer of bodily fluids from the victim and the suspect. So DNA is the best thing that they can concentrate on right now if they don't have a suspect.
Okay, Ed Davis for us tonight here on Top Story. Ed, we appreciate your analysis. We want to turn now to the tense standoff between Tampa police and former NFL star Antonio Brown. Officers trying to arrest Brown on battery and domestic violence charges stemming from an alleged domestic dispute. NBC's Sam Brock has those details.
Tonight, Tampa police say they're trying to arrest former NFL player Antonio Brown, making multiple attempts outside this home to execute an arrest warrant for battery domestic violence. The department telling NBC News he's, quote, not communicating with police officers. It's the latest twist in the 34-year-old saga that's gone well beyond the gridiron. The charges stemming from an incident Monday involving Brown and the mother of 4 of his children. According to court documents, Brown threw a shoe at the woman, striking her in the ponytail. The victim had no injuries, but believed the shoe was meant for her head. In the same document, police describe learning Brown tossed the woman's belongings out of the house and then made threats via speakerphone, saying that if she got in the house, he would shoot her in front of police. It also says the kids did not want to go inside because they were afraid of their dad when he gets in these destructive moods. After the incident, a petition to remove Brown's guns and ammunition under a risk protection order was rejected by a Florida judge, citing lack of physical action.
How is it possible there wasn't enough evidence to take his guns away, but there is enough evidence to potentially prosecute him for domestic violence?
The judge got this one wrong. The Florida statute that allows for these risk protection orders gives a series of factors that can be considered by the court. He met a number of them. Antonio Brown is a risk to not only himself, but to the members of the community and obviously to the mother of his children.
According to the petition, he kept 2 firearms in the house, a handgun and a rifle. NBC News has not been able to reach Brown's legal team for comment, as tonight he remains a wanted man by Tampa police.
Okay, Sam, who joins us live tonight, pick it up from right there. Do we have any idea where Antonio Brown is tonight?
So we think he's in the home, although police will not go on the record to say whether or not he is. Sources tell NBC News, though, that he is inside there. And, Tom, this is not a standoff. They're not characterizing it that. More so as a stalemate. They tell us right now there's no police cars that are marked outside of the house, but there are unmarked cars. And the idea here is it seems like they're going to wait it out. But Tampa police tells me that they are not going to risk officer safety for a misdemeanor warrant there unless he escalates the situation himself. So, really, this is going to keep on going on until he leaves the house.
Yeah, it sounds like they're going to maybe wait for him to surrender, possibly. And there's also the issue of the weapons, as you reported. The court documents also say there have been other domestic violent incidents in the past.
Right. So the woman that is at the very heart of the petition to try to take the guns away from Antonio Brown says that she has been victimized by him previously as well. But the reason that she did not pursue it was because she was worried that the house she was staying in is owned by his company, according to this woman, would be taken away. And all the financial assistance that he's providing would also be taken away. So at the very least, what this does is conceivably establish a pattern of behavior that seems to fit with the profile of what we know about Antonio Brown, Tom.
Okay, Sam Brock for us tonight. Sam, we appreciate that. The rapper formerly known as Kanye West causing more public outcry tonight over anti-Semitic remarks. Ye appearing with a hood over his face, speaking to far-right-wing conspiracy theorist Alex Jones on InfoWars. Ye sitting alongside white supremacist Nick Fuentes, who was also at that dinner with President Trump last week. NBC News correspondent Valerie Castro joins us now. And Valerie, this is something we struggled to figure out how we were going to report this exactly, because a lot of what he said was so vile.
It's been a difficult decision, but the comments that he's made seem to be escalating in the nature. He blatantly stated tonight that he loves and sees good things about Hitler, that he likes Nazis, and even went so far as to taunt brothers Ari and Rahm Emanuel, prominent Jewish figures. And there was strong condemnation today from the Jewish community. Jonathan Greenblatt, CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, tweeted in response to the comments, saying in part, Ye is a vicious anti-Semite. His comments today on InfoWars are not just vile and offensive, they put Jews in danger. The Republican Jewish Coalition also issued a statement that reads in part, given his praise of Hitler, it can't be overstated that Kanye West is a vile, repellent bigot who has targeted the Jewish community with threats and Nazi-style defamation. Conservatives who have mistakenly indulged Kanye West must make it clear that he is a pariah. Enough is enough. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Hake asked House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy for reaction. He called Ye's comments disgusting and unbelievable and said it's incumbent on the entire nation to call out behavior like that.
But what's the next step? I know he was already dropped by Adidas. He was dropped by his talent agency, but you can still listen to his music.
Right. And on social media, a lot of people are taking issue with that, and they're calling on music services like Spotify, Apple Music to no longer make that music available. We reached out to both of those services tonight, but we have not heard back yet.
So I guess the question is, and we're going to get into this more in our next segment, but you know, at some point, I thought, and maybe others thought too, that Kanye would eventually apologize, but it's not. He's doubling down. He's tripling down. Is there any coming back from this, especially with the Jewish community?
So I spoke to a rabbi not that long ago by phone, and he said, look, in the Jewish faith, there is a belief that people can right their wrongs, that they can work to heal the wrongs that they have made. But he says this is not one person that Ye offended. This is an entire group of people on a very large platform that has a large audience. And those comments now have the potential to incite violence, potential hate crimes against the Jewish community. So he says while he hopes that Ye realizes that what he's saying is dangerous and inflammatory, it's not as simple as saying I'm sorry to one person or one individual.
Yeah, the two big fears is that it leads to more violence against the Jewish people, and also that it normalizes these types of comments. Okay, Valerie Castro, we appreciate it. With the latest anti-Semitic rant by Ye, the questions remain, what happens to the artists? To help us unpack that question, entertainment journalist and a friend of Top Story, Segun Odulowu, joins us now. Segun, thanks so much for joining Top Story. You know, we talked about this from the get-go, and I'm now at the point where I don't think there is any coming back from this. This is now the third rail, and I don't think Kanye West will ever apologize. I don't think he wants to apologize. My question to you is what happens to Kanye West and all the art he has created up to this point?
Well, I think it's a simple one, Tom. If you have any type of moral compass or if you have any type of code of ethics personal and you choose to indulge in his music or indulge in the fashion that he created, that says enough about you that I don't need to be around you. Kanye West has shown you who he is. To quote Maya Angelou, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. And I just don't understand why a fashion designer and a musician, we are going to him for political or, you know, religious or any type of expertise other than fashion and music. Like, I don't look to Kanye for leadership or direction more so than I would look to Marc Jacobs or Tom Ford in the fashion world. Like,
but Segun, when you're in the public arena, you obviously have a massive platform and people follow you and they listen to you. So you do have to be mindful of what you say.
Absolutely, Tom. But I think what's getting lost is I think because Kanye West is black, that in some way, shape, or form, people are thinking that he speaks for black people, and he doesn't. This is an individual that has a problem that he has chosen to air on any platform that will put a mic in front of him. And whatever the reasons or whatever he's going through at this point in time, I believe that it's not even so much about canceling. If you are a company, a CEO of a corporation, or a human being, if you have any type of moral fiber, you do not partake in what Kanye is cooking. It's really simple. I don't eat at that restaurant. I don't shop at that store. I don't pray at that church. Kanye has shown us repeatedly who he is and what he's about, and it's nonsense. And we need to move away from it.
But do you think, Segun, but we were actually talking, and you may remember this conversation we had. This is before all the comments were made. We were talking about how many collaborations Kanye was doing in recent months and how he was appearing on so many different tracks for new artists, for the top artists in the hip-hop industry. My question to you is, do you see those collaborations happening again? I mean, do people try to forget this and move on, or is he done forever?
I hope that those artists that were doing collaborations with him or contemplating doing collaborations with him are looking with open eyes and open ears at what he is saying. And for me, it's very simple. When you lay down with dogs, you wake up with fleas. He is surrounding himself with white supremacists, hate mongers, and people that spread filth and foment hate. If you are another artist and your art is about hate, anti-Semitism, racism, and ignorance, and you want to do a record with this guy, then you are telling us who you are too. So that's how simple it is for me. If I had a record with Kanye, I wouldn't put it out. In fact, I would say to myself, I would say to the world, this isn't who I am, and this brother does not speak for me, and the music that I make is not representative of what this man is putting out there. And that needs to be said, right? These artists, I don't think Kanye can come back, because to stand next to him with a microphone is to put your arm around the same type of ugliness he's putting his arm around. And to me, that's wrong.
I think you might be right. We may be talking about the final chapter of Kanye West. All right, Segun Odulowu, we thank you as always for joining Top Story. Americans spending more than $35 billion online at the start of this holiday shopping season. But consumers are feeling the pinch of higher prices and, of course, higher interest rates. Now, the Fed signaling it may ease up on those rate hikes. NBC's Tom Costello has the latest on this very mixed economic picture.
Just over 2 weeks till Hanukkah, 3 till Christmas, and the latest data suggests Americans are still spending, with 40-year high inflation continuing to ease. October consumer spending just out shows the biggest gain since June, even as families pay more for rent, food, and new cars. Retailers report nearly 200 million people flocked to stores from Thanksgiving through Cyber Monday. In Atlanta, Whitney and Joe Novak own Kazoo Toys and say shoppers are inflation sensitive but still buying.
We've had a good year. We're positive. I mean, we're keeping people employed. We're not concerned. Toy is one of those nice industries where we're not going to have the huge up and downs roller coaster of supply demand. I mean, kids are always going to want toys.
Inflation in October running at 6%, slightly lower than September. Fed Chairman Jay Powell now says the Federal Reserve could soon slow the pace of its interest rate hikes aimed at taming inflation.
The time for moderating the pace of rate increases may come as soon as the December meeting.
That could mean a half-point rate hike in 2 weeks rather than another three-quarter-point hike. Meanwhile, gas prices are now averaging $3.47 a gallon, down 28 cents in a month. Third quarter GDP even stronger than first reported.
We're kind of like waiting for the recession like they were waiting for Godot. It hasn't happened yet. And each month that goes by, the economy proves itself to be more resilient. Consumers keep spending.
Tomorrow, we'll get the November jobs report, 200,000 new jobs expected. And that's data the Fed will use when deciding whether it really can slow the pace of those rate hikes in December. Tom?
Okay, Tom, as we await the decision from the Fed, I want to bring in Curtis Dubé, the chief economist for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, to help us break it all down. Curtis, the first question is very simple. Are we headed for a recession or a recovery?
Well, that's the question everyone wants an answer to. But I thought it was interesting you had the picture of the base jumper getting caught on the side of the mountain. I think that's basically what the Fed is trying to do to bring the economy through some really perilous times. And the juxtaposition of what we have going on, which is there's a lot of weakness in the economy, but at the same time there's a lot of strengths. It's a double-edged sword. It means that we could get through this period while we bring inflation down in a way that isn't so bad, that maybe we get through in what's called a soft landing. But at the same time, it makes this Fed's jobs harder because if demand remains strong, if incomes keep growing, prices are going to remain high. So it makes it harder for them to bring down prices. So it's really an unknown. We don't know. This is a very unique situation we've never been in before.
You know, I know there's so many mixed signals out there, but I also want to be really honest with our viewers. And here on Top Story, we've always tried to break down the economy in a way that, we can all understand. We talk about holiday spending. We talk about consumers still buying products. But we also talk about the record credit card debt Americans are in right now and the spending that has gone completely out of control since the pandemic.
Spending's been strong. Consumption's been strong. I'm not too concerned about the run-up in credit card debt. It's been growing, but it came way down during the pandemic. And as compared to income, it's still at very manageable levels. Now, it's probably going to keep rising. That's the problem, that it will continue rising from here. The thing that's been buttressing spending the most has been savings. It was enormous. It was about $2.7 trillion over trend during the pandemic. It's come way, way down during this year. It's come down every month. But there's still a lot of savings out there that can keep spending up. So consumers can keep spending using those balances rather than running up credit.
Talk to me about layoffs. We're hearing layoffs, and I will say, again, the news out there is mixed. There are companies that are having lots of layoffs. There are companies that are sort of staying quiet. There's companies that are having hiring freezes. What is the outlook right now when it comes to layoffs, and should people be worried about their own jobs?
I am not worried about layoffs yet. We're still adding jobs. We still have way more job openings than we do have unemployed workers to fill them. More than 4 million, the gap is. There's more than 4.3 million job openings, more than unemployed workers. The layoffs have been very targeted in specific industries, and I do think businesses use periods of economic slowdowns and the potential of a recession to slim down and get more efficient. So to me, not yet. It's not a signal of economic weakness. The job market remains too strong. The Fed would like to see it weaken some to help get inflation down, because
finally,
jobs
Curtis,
are growing, incomes are growing, wages are growing.
Before you go, I know you have a theory on this, the secondhand pessimism. Talk to me about what this means briefly, if you can.
Yeah, sure. It's really interesting. It's back to that unique circumstance we're in, which is that if you look at any survey, whether it's consumers or businesses, they tell you things are bad. The economy's not good now. It's not going to be good in the future. But consumers keep spending and businesses keep hiring, raising wages, and investing. So they're picking up the pessimism secondhand because when they look at their own personal circumstances, they think things are pretty good.
All right, Curtis Dubé from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We appreciate your analysis tonight. Still ahead, an update on that teen shot in a McDonald's parking lot in Texas. The officer who fired into his car now indicted, the charges he's facing tonight. Plus the extreme accident, a base jumper crashing into a cliff in Utah, what eyewitnesses say they saw from the ground. And the rail strike averted, the deal just reached to stop a labor strike in its tracks. Stay with us. Top story just getting started on this Thursday night. Back now with a story out of Utah. Witnesses capturing the terrifying moments a base jumper slams into a cliff before his parachute snags on a ledge, essentially saving his life but suspending him midair. Stephen Romo has more.
Tonight, incredible video showing a base jumper crash into a cliff in the middle of his descent, with his parachute managing to get stuck on the rock face, leaving him dangling in the air.
Oh my goodness.
This happened at Cane Creek Canyon near Moab, Utah.
For whatever reason, this jumper had a bad day.
Matt Lajeunesse, a member of the Moab Base Association, witnessing the terrifying accident on Saturday.
He's in a bad place. He definitely took a bit of a hit.
Oh no.
Oh my God, is he just hanging there?
Mitch Edwards watching it all. He and his 12-year-old son can be heard on the video, shocked at what they witnessed.
Oh no.
Oh my God. Oh my.
Telling our affiliate KSL it could have been much worse if the jumper's parachute hadn't snagged on a ledge, saving him from plummeting farther.
Somebody from search and rescue climbed up the cliff, but that was amazing because there was no crack, no obvious route to get there. And so they had to set pins to get up there.
The family watched the Grand County Sheriff's Office search and rescue team work to get the jumper down, estimating that it took about 2 hours.
Somebody miraculously got up there and then, got the guy, but got him on another rope and lowered him down to the ground.
He was able to say, hey, I'm okay. My leg really hurts.
The sheriff's office telling KSL their ropes team did manage to save the man and that he was airlifted to a hospital. Lajeunesse telling us the jumper now has a broken leg.
They were able to get him from a cliff face to a helicopter to a hospital in a couple hours. That's really remarkable. Super impressive work on their end.
Stephen Romo, NBC News.
Okay, when we come back, the medical emergency at a middle school in California. 7 students rushed to the hospital with symptoms of an overdose, what authorities say they might have taken. Stay with us. Okay, we are back now with Top Stories news feed and an update on the police shooting of a Texas teen in a McDonald's parking lot. The former San Antonio officer indicted on attempted murder charges after he was captured on body camera shooting 17-year-old Eric Cantu several times inside his car. Cantu was on life support for weeks following that October shooting, but is now recovering at his home. 10 students in Los Angeles were treated for what officials are calling a suspected cannabis overdose. Authorities say the students who range in age from 12 to 14 were found in, quote, mild to moderate distress at a middle school. At least 7 people were taken to the hospital and 3 were released at the scene. Officials say the overdose likely involved edibles. Several students hurt in a school bus crash in Rockland County, New York. Aerial footage shows the bus in the side of a house. You can see it there. Another vehicle overturned next to it. Authorities say 22 people were on board when the bus veered off the road while going around a turn. Several students and the driver hospitalized, but they are all expected to be okay. Authorities are investigating if speed was a factor there. And the Senate has averted that potentially crippling rail strike. The bipartisan bill will force rail union workers to accept an agreement brokered by the White House months ago. However, it did not add the amount of paid sick leave unions had asked for. The bill now heads to President Biden to sign. Biden had urged Congress to work quickly to avoid a supply chain catastrophe ahead of the holidays. All right, now to the man once known as the king of crypto. Going on an apology tour, former CEO of FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, speaking out after his company's historic economic collapse. Gabe Gutierrez has this one.
Weeks after its massive cryptocurrency exchange FTX collapsed, Sam Bankman-Fried is on an apology tour.
What are your lawyers telling you right now? Are they suggesting this is a good idea for you to be speaking?
No, they are very much not.
But the 30-year-old former billionaire says he had no intent to commit fraud and says management failures and sloppy accounting caused FTX to implode.
I screwed up.
In early November, crypto media outlet CoinDesk reported on potential problems with Bankman-Fried's other company, Alameda, a hedge fund. Soon, concerned investors were demanding their money from FTX, causing what amounted to a run on the bank. It forced the exchange into bankruptcy.
Clearly, I made a lot of mistakes or are things I would give anything to be able to do over again. I didn't ever try to commit fraud on anyone.
Congress is now investigating FTX's collapse.
These events uncovered an alarming lack of internal controls and egregious governance failures.
A key question is whether FTX misappropriated customer funds when it made loans to Bankman-Fried's hedge fund.
I didn't knowingly commingle funds.
But many of FTX's investors aren't buying it.
He's screwed over so many people.
Manny Bautista says he can't access his assets with FTX, valued at about $35,000, and is driving for a rideshare service to make ends meet. What do you think should happen to him?
I think he should go to jail, and there should be some way to have users recover their funds.
Bankman-Fried was once estimated to be worth more than $20 billion. He says he's now down to $100,000 and one credit card. Tom?
We turn now to the triple-demic, RSV and COVID and the flu, all circulating across the country. More than 80% of hospital beds now full. That, according to Health and Human Services. The flu already taking its toll as well. The CDC estimates that at least there have been 6.2 million cases of the flu so far this season, with nearly 3,000 deaths. The hospitalization rate for the flu this year, the highest in 12 years. I want to bring in NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar. And Dr. Azar, I want to start with the flu. So there have been 12 pediatric deaths so far. Is that high for this time of year? I mean, you feel awful for all those families involved.
Right. It is high for this time of year. And, you know, we didn't have a lot of flu the last couple of years, Tom. If we compare to the 2019 to 2020 season, there were close to 200 pediatric deaths from flu. And that was extraordinarily high. And importantly, 80% of those kids who died were not vaccinated, and less than half had an underlying medical condition. So I know a lot of people think, well, just like with COVID, that flu's not so serious for children. It absolutely can be, and vaccination absolutely helps to save lives in kids as well as adults.
Anecdotally, in my family, we've had really bad cases of the flu.
Yeah.
We have colleagues who have really bad cases of the flu. Is the flu that's going around right now, at least in the Northeast or on the East Coast, is it more powerful than flus we've seen in the past?
So the two predominant circulating strains right now, they're both the H1N1 and the H3N2, are strains that we always see. They are not necessarily more virulent this year than in the past, but they can cause serious disease, of course, especially in the vulnerable populations that we now know too well.
Yeah, when we talk about the triple-demic, we're talking about obviously COVID, flu, and RSV. Yeah. They're all respiratory illnesses. we have this graphic up here which is pretty interesting, and we see some overlap there. What are the overlaps?
So I would basically say for folks that if you think about it as a respiratory illness that affects your upper airway, that, you know, the sneezing, the runny nose, a sore throat, even a cough can be in all three of them. The one thing that really stands out with flu, however, is that high fever. It usually comes on with a very stormy onset. And a little pearl from some pediatricians at my hospital that clued me in on this is that we tend to see a lot of GI symptoms with RSV and COVID, so diarrhea, upset stomach. Less so with RSV. But at the end of the day, you really can't tell the difference, and you can treat COVID and you can treat flu, but there is no treatment necessarily for RSV.
Are these respiratory illnesses connected in some way? And do the COVID vaccines we've been taking over the last year, do they have any effect? Do they help us in any way against RSV or the flu?
Indirectly, they do.
Okay.
So the viruses themselves are not really related at all. But it is a truism in medicine in general that if you get sick with one respiratory illness, you are at a greater risk for developing another respiratory illness because your lungs have already taken a hit. So you become more susceptible to other infections in general, and particularly pneumonia caused by bacteria is a well-known and, a side effect and outcome of flu that we are always concerned about.
So hospitals are understaffed, and because of that, in part, they're now overwhelmed. When should people, if they get diagnosed with the flu, when should they go to the hospital? When is it time to call an ambulance or go to the ER?
So a couple things, and I think this is true for all of these illnesses. If you have a sustained fever, let's say of 102 or higher, if you're having any shortness of breath or chest pain, and then the sort of lightheadedness or dizziness because you're just not being able to eat and drink, you can become dehydrated. Those are definitely the things you want to worry about. The trick is in your young kids who are not verbal yet and they can't communicate. So we're looking for things like not being able to feed, being very irritable, using, flaring the nostrils, using their necks to help them breathe. Those are little things that you can look for in your kids who can't tell you that they're having trouble breathing.
Okay, good to know. Dr. Natalie Azar, so great to have you on Top Stories tonight.
Thank you.
Coming up, flooding emergency, the dramatic video of rescuers in Brazil using a helicopter to try and rescue people from neck-deep water, plus the race to save survivors after the heavy rain triggered a deadly landslide. Stay with us. Now to Top Stories Global Watch into the deadly storms in southern Brazil. New video shows a helicopter crew rescuing people from neck-deep water that submerged homes. The flooding prompting a state of emergency and evacuations across 17 cities. Heavy rain there also triggering a landslide that engulfed a motorway. At least 2 people are dead. Dozens are still missing. Bad weather in the remote location are complicating that search. Now to the explosions at a gas pipeline in Mexico. Take a look at this new video. It shows a column of smoke rising from the blast site in Veracruz. The explosion sending at least 19 people to the hospital with first and second degree burns. Roughly 90 people were evacuated from the area. The state oil company that owns the pipeline said workers were fixing a gas leak at the time of the blast. And history made at the FIFA Men's World Cup. For the first time, an all-female referee crew officiated a match. The trailblazing trio took charge of the game between Germany and Costa Rica. Germany won 4-2, but was still knocked out of the tournament. Stay right there. More news now on the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.